we'll start to take our seat, getting comfortable and really in this moment. Beginning to touch base with the body, observing the breath, sensations of the body, the quality of the thoughts as they pass by. Maybe beginning to hear the breath and really listen to it. And we'll start with a little shoulder rolls here. Just rolling them forward, up and back. A few times here at your own pace. Really getting into pulling them all the way up and then drawing them back. And sliding them forward. Then reverse the circles. Notice if it feels a little bit different going this way. And maybe even allowing it to flow with your breath. As you inhale and lifting the shoulders up, and exhale, pulling them back down. And then bring them back to center and just give them a little shaking out. And then we'll take both legs out long and forward. Then tuck the right heel back. Come into kind of like a half hero pose or half heron pose. And then finding a place that's comfortable. You can even lift up onto a pillow or blanket here. And then resting back just a scooch, or as far back as is comfortable for you. You can experiment here and find that place where it feels good without any pinching or zinging. And take a few breaths on this side, allowing the breath to really flow into the right hip, the right knee. If there's any pressure anywhere, you can just slide back up a little bit. You can come on down to the elbows if comfortable. And take another couple of breaths here. And then very gently beginning to press yourself back up and walk yourself back forward. And swing the right foot back around. Give the knees a little gentle bounce through the legs. Then we'll roll onto the right side and slide the left heel back up towards the left glute. And getting into a comfortable place, wiggling it around a little bit, finding that just right zone, the Goldilocks zone. And then we'll start to walk the hands back. Ease into it as much as you can, and slowly, eventually, maybe coming down onto the elbows. Or farther down if comfortable. Take a breath, a couple of breaths on this side. Breathing into the left hip, to the left leg, left knee. Checking in with the low back, the foot. Being very aware of that whole left side and staying really present with it so that we don't add any discomfort that doesn't need to be there. And take another breath. And slowly press yourself up and walk your hands back up. We'll release that left leg back forward and give the legs a little side to side or a little jiggle and wiggling. We'll move our props here for now. And then coming into a twist, we'll bring the left foot up over under the right leg and over to the left or to the right seat, and then take the right foot on around to cross over the left. And then we'll give that right knee just a little hug with the left hand, just really gently, just placing it there, and then lift up through the right hand. Get really tall and really long through the spine first, and then we'll exhale and twist over towards the right. Using the right hand to press down to help us reach a little bit taller through the crown of the head so that we can feel really tall through the spine. And you really using the ribs to come from our twist. Feeling it from the torso, the center of the body. And the hips may gently shift along with you. We'll inhale and getting a little bit taller, a little bit longer through the back of the neck. And we'll exhale and let the shoulders just drop down. Taking one more breath on this side. And then we'll gently slide back to center. Shake it out a little. And then we'll switch. Taking the right foot up under the left leg and over towards the left seat. And the left foot goes over the right leg, crossing over. Coming into our twist on this side, we'll use the right hand to help support that left leg. And then inhale, get really tall, really long through the spine to the left hand. Lifting up with our exhale, inhale, and exhale, twist open to the left. Pressing down through the left hand, really reaching that left hand down into the ground. So get a little bit taller through the crown of the head. Like we could lift the head up away from the shoulders. Almost like we could stretch like taffy or pull away from the ground with the crown of the head. And allowing the twist to come really from the left rib cage. We'll take another breath here as we get a little bit taller and allow the shoulders to drop down away from the ears. Keeping the neck in line with the spine. And then gently come back to center. Unwind. And take a moment to shift or wiggle or jiggle it out a little. Unraveling. And we'll transition onto all fours. Gently coming into our spinal flexion. We'll line up the shoulders over wrists and hips over knees. And take a breath here first. Feeling long through the spine and long through the back of the neck. Like we could almost lift up from the back of the neck like you're lifting a cat by the scruff of the neck. Then on your next inhale, we'll drop through the belly and press the shoulder blades together in our cow pose. And exhale, rounding everything through the spine, coming into our cat pose. Really feeling the pelvis rounding and tucking, chin dipping to the chest. And then inhale, pull the heart forward. And exhale, coming into our rounded cat pose, pressing down through the feet, through the hands. One more time, we'll inhale, pull the shoulder blades together, bringing the hands energetically back towards the feet. And exhale as we round through the spine, pressing the hands away, increasing the space. And then coming back to neutral spine. We'll bring the elbows down where the hands are. Interlace the fingers. I'm coming into a little dolphin pose. So we'll tuck the toes under and then lift the hips. And adjust the feet as needed. Beginning to get into our shoulder stretch, shoulder strengthening, upper back strengthening. Really lifting up through the hips, allowing the heels to feel weighted as we melt the heart down towards the toes. We take a breath in our dolphin. And then bring the knees down and come back up onto the hands. And we'll tuck the toes, walk the hands back as we start to come up into a little toe squat. So we'll go ahead and lift up through the torso and then reach back and take our little pinky toe and maybe bring it a little bit forward. And we'll take a few breaths here, giving our toes a nice stretch and strengthening our poor neglected toes. Keep them bound up in shoes all day. We'll let them breathe and give them a little stretch. And then we'll walk back forward, back into our tabletop for just a moment. And then just give the toes a little wiggle out. Rotate through the ankles. And let them adjust. And we'll tuck the toes under again and then lift the hips up high and back, coming into our down dog. And you can adjust your hands or feet here, maybe making a wide down dog. And experimenting with that. And rotate the inner thighs towards each other. And the shoulders rotate out away from each other. And hugging up through the midline. Feeling the navel lift. As we take a moment here to sink the heart down towards the knees. Then bend the knees and look towards the hands. And we'll step or walk the feet up to meet the hands. Find our forward fold. Giving a little sway here. Taking a few maybe options to grasp the opposite elbows and open up through the back, through the upper back and the shoulders. Keep the navel lifted and slightly engaged here, supporting and giving more space for the low back. Or maybe we interlace the hands, place them gently at the nape of the neck, creating a little cradle for the head, a little more space for the neck. We'll take another few breaths here to find what you can find. Keeping strong through the feet and the core, even as we release through the whole upper body. And then allow the hands to drop if they haven't already. And we'll inhale a halfway lift. And we'll pause here, hugging the elbows in, hugging in through the navel, feeling the ribs begin to knit together. And looking down at our toes, we'll rotate the inner thighs towards each other, making sure our toes are parallel. Maybe even lifting them up a little and then creating a little space between each toe. See if we can widen our stance here a little bit. As we pull the shoulders down and back. And take another breath. Then bend through the knees and send the hips back. Reach the arms forward, coming into our chair pose. Really keeping the navel lifting up and in. Slight lengthening through the low back. We'll take another breath here. Allowing the shoulders to dip down away from the ears. Building strength. Building a little heat here. And then pressing into the heels. We'll inhale and lift all the way up. Exhale, twist open towards the right. Hands come down halfway. Inhale, lifting up, reaching up to the sky. Exhale, twist left. Hands come down halfway. Inhale, lift back up, reach up, look up. Exhale, bend through the knees, sink the hips back again. We come back to our chair pose. Arms reaching out long. And then we'll shift the weight into the toes and begin to lift up gently, slowly here with the heels. Coming into a little chair toe stand. I'll say that fast 3 times. Hugging up through the abs. Lengthening through the spine. Keeping the back of the neck long. And then exhale, we'll let the heels drop. Bring the hands back all the way down. Find our forward fold. Shake the head, a little yes, a little no. Keep it nice and loose. Inhale, halfway lift. Catch a wave on the breath. Exhale, forward fold. Plant the palms. Take the right toes back and the left toes back. I'll pause for a moment in our plank pose. Hugging up through the abs and feeling really long. Creating that long line. Feeling like a real plank. Like an incline ramp. And then we'll shift forward on the toes. Hug the elbows in and keep that long plank back as we slowly bend the elbows and lower down. Trying not to sink the hips down first. Land one time. Inhale, lift up into cobra. Dipping the chin here. Back down. We'll do that a couple more times. Inhale, lifting up into our little baby. Keeping the chin tucked slightly. Exhale, forehead down. Last time, inhale, lift up into our cobra. Pressing the hips down. Forehead comes back down. Tuck the toes. Use your exhale to propel you up through plank. Then hips up high and back. Our downward facing dog. Pedaling out through the feet this time. Feeling into the lower legs and into the fascia of the feet. If we can picture all that connective tissue of the foot beginning to get a little massage as we pedal. Then slide the right foot in between the hands. We'll come down on the left knee, finding our center of gravity. We take a breath here and then inhale and sweep the arms up, reach for the sky. Slide that right hip back in space. Take another breath and then exhale, bring the hands back down to frame the right foot. Lift up onto the left toes, lift the left knee. And we'll plant the left hand. Inhale, reach the right arm up and twist open towards the right. Exhale, frame the right foot. Slide the right toes back. Find our plank pose. Widening through the shoulder blades as we send the heels back. And slowly lowering all the way down onto the belly. Inhale, lifting up into cobra, maybe a little bit bigger this time. Tucking through the chin still. Onto the forehead. Taking a breath. And then exhale, press up into plank. And lift the hips up high and back. Downward facing dog. And this time we'll bring our attention to the hands. Pressing into the index finger and the thumb. Rotating those shoulders so the elbow creases point forward. And maybe sinking the heart a little bit further down towards the toes. Shaking the head loose. Making sure there's no tension in the jaw. We'll take another breath. Resetting. Then slide the left foot forward in between the hands. We'll come down on the right knee. Take a breath to find center. And then inhale from center, lifting up and reaching up through the hands. Letting the left hip glide back. So both hip points are pointing forward. We'll take another breath. And then exhale, bring the hands back down to frame the left foot. Right knee. We'll plant the right palm down and lift up through the left hand, twisting open towards the left, reaching through the left rib cage. And then exhale, bring the hand back down, frame the left foot, slide the left toes back. Back to our plank pose. We'll take a breath in plank. Pressing into the knuckles. All 10 knuckles, relieving some of the pressure from the wrists. Take one more breath to kind of buoy up through the shoulder blades. And then exhale, begin to lower all the way down onto the belly. Inhale, lift up into cobra. And exhale, float back down. Tuck the toes. Use your breath to press yourself up, move you through plank, and then into our downward facing dog. Loose. Find your reset button. And inhale, lift up through the right foot. And we'll bend the right knee, stack the right hip over the left hip, coming into our three-legged dog, cross over here. And really lifting up through that right knee. And then we'll get back through our three-legged dog and all the way in between the hands. And we'll come down on the left knee, and this time we'll take the right foot out wide off the side of the mat and bring the right hand in. Coming into our lizard pose here, we'll begin to rock a little side to side or make little circles through the hips. Giving a little space through the hips. And observing the hips, so bringing the breath to the hips and noticing what changes as you move. Where do you feel the inside of the leg And at what point does that change and you feel into the outside of the hip? You can move with the knees a little bit too as you move side to side and roll around into the hips. Notice the knee moving along with you. And then walk that right foot back in line with the hip, and we'll bring the right hand back around to frame the foot, and then lifting up the left heel or the left knee. We'll pause here for a moment and then sweep the arms all the way up into our high lunge. Take a breath in our high lunge and then plant the left heel down, coming into our warrior one. Shifting the hips so that we can point them towards the front, or maybe towards that front left corner. And pressing into the back edge of that back foot. And we'll lift up a little bit taller through the spine, through the crown of the head, as we allow the shoulders to drop down away from the ears. Then exhale, press the hands back, we'll reach back into our airplane arms, tipping forward here just slightly, keeping the abs hugged up. And then interlace the fingers, reach back with the fists. We'll keep that really long, flat back. And start to tip forward, keeping the flat back as long as we can. And then when you hit that point, where you can't keep it flat back, we'll go ahead and round over into our humble warrior, reaching up through the fists, pulling open the front of the shoulders as we squeeze the shoulder blades together. We'll take another breath in our humble warrior. And then unclasp the fingers, let them float all the way down. To frame that right foot again, we'll slide the left heel back in line and bounce through that left knee. Give us a little bit of movement here, and then slide the left foot up to meet the right. Back to our forward fold. Dropping the head, dropping the shoulders, shaking it all out. And take a breath. Then bend through the knees. We'll reach the arms forward, send the hips back. We'll come back to our chair pose. Allowing the shoulders to drop down away from the ears, really lengthening through the low back. So hugging the abs up and in. I'm feeling the quads as we maybe lower the hips just a little bit more. And then send the hands down back to our forward fold. We'll plant the left hand down and bend that left knee. Reach up through the right arm. Twisting open towards the right. And exhale, we'll bring the hands back down. Then switching, bending into the right knee as we reach down with the right hand and lift up through the left hand, twisting open towards the left. Exhale, float the hand back down. Then slide the right foot back. And then we'll come down onto the right knee. And we'll walk the left foot out off of the side of the mat into our lizard pose. And begin to roll into this side, rotating through the hips. Making those circles with the hips, maybe even a little figure eight motion. Really feeling into this side. Noticing any differences on this side from the other side. Where you feel the movement or the stretch, the sensations along the inner thigh, of the left and on the inner thigh of the right. And then shifting your focus to the outer thigh, into the glutes, into the knee, as we feel into this hip. And then walk the left foot back in line with the left hip and take the hand back out to frame it. And lift up the right knee. We'll get ourselves ready for our high lunge as we find our center of gravity. And then inhale, sweep the arms up, reaching up for the sky. We'll pause for a moment in the high lunge, lifting that right kneecap. And breathing as we allow the shoulders to settle down into the shoulder girdle with our exhale. And then planting the right heel down, coming into our warrior one. Maybe widening the stance here if comfortable. And adjusting the hips so they point towards the front or towards that right corner of the mat. And pressing into the pinky toe edge of the back foot. Lifting up through the abs. Reaching up really high. And then exhale, we'll swim the hands back. Coming into our airplane pose for a moment, our airplane arms. Finding a long flat back. Keeping the hips pointing towards the front. And interlace the hands behind the back. And then reach the fists back. Back and away. Drop the shoulders down as the shoulder blades reach together. And then keeping that flat back, we'll start to tip forward as long as we can stay really, really long. And then when we feel that low back starting to round, we'll go ahead and round through the low back, mid back, dropping the head and the chin into our humble warrior and lifting up, reaching up through the hands, pressing the fists up towards the sky and keeping the belly engaged so we can lift the belly up kind of away from the thigh bone. We'll take a breath here. And then unclasp the hands, let the hands float down to frame the left foot, pivot on the right foot. We'll slide the left foot back this time, and lift the hips up high and back to find our down dog. Shake the head loose, pressing into the index finger and thumb. And lift the left foot. Three-legged dog. Bending at the left knee, we'll shift the hips, stacking the left hip over right hip. Take a moment to breathe and lift up through the left knee, keeping the balance of our hands as even as possible, even as we shift our hips. And then let the foot back flow back through our three-legged dog and then back all the way to our down dog. And lift up through the hips. Let the heels drop. And then walk the feet up to meet the hands. Back into our forward fold. Take a breath. And then we'll bend the knees and plant the palms. And take the knees to the outside of the arms here, coming into first a little squat. And then we'll play a little with a little crow pose, balancing play. So we'll shift the weight forward into the hands and lift up onto the toes. And really keep the knees and the shins literally plastered to the upper arms. So we start to tip a little forward and maybe lift one toe, Maybe lift the other toe. Maybe keeping the toes down. Finding a little play here. Maybe just rocking a little back and forth. And then when you're satisfied, we'll come back into our little squat and then take the feet out a little bit wider. Maybe lowering into a full squat here, if comfortable. Keeping the hands either planted or bringing them to heart center. Breathing into our squat. Letting the shoulders drop down away from the ears. Taking a few breaths. Finding center. Then we'll bring the hands back forward and shift the weight back forward. And then slide the right toes back and the left toes back. Coming back into our plank pose. Rotate the inner thighs kind of towards each other. And see if we can get all 10 toes with a little space on them, even in our plank pose. And then shift the heels, press the heels back. Shift forward onto the hands and then slowly lower down onto the belly. Slide to either side, up on the fingertips, making our little spider hands, and then inhale, lift up into our cobra, pressing down through the hips, tucking the chin, and then exhale. Bring the hands back to the rib cage, tuck the toes. Exhale, press up through all fours or straight to plank, and then up into our down dog. And then we'll walk the feet up a little bit closer. And then we'll slide the left foot up to the left hand. We'll come into our warrior 3 balancing pose. Play here, lifting up through the right toes. And then maybe taking one hand to the shin or the other hand to the shin, maybe lifting up into our warrior 3 with the arms back in airplane or alongside the ears. And lift up through the abs. Dipping the chin. I'll take a breath to play. And then exhale, we'll come back into our forward fold. And rotate a little side to side. Shake out through the head. Rotate through the wrists. And then we'll slide the left foot back. Pause here at a little bus stop here, bus stop 1. And then we'll start to lift up through the left toes. And come into our warrior 3 play on this side. Experimenting on this side with maybe lifting a hand or two to the shin or into airplane or reaching them in front of you. Experimenting with where you are today on this side and in this moment. Each day we come through our practice a little bit different things going on. And then when you're satisfied on this side, we'll slowly begin to lower back into our forward fold and shift a little side to side. From here, we'll come down to hands and knees. Take the feet out, or the knees out wide. We'll come into a wide-legged child's pose. toes to touch. We'll sink down to our child's pose for a moment. And take a few breaths here, widening through the low back, widening through the shoulders. Sinking the hips towards the heels and letting everything kind of melt for a moment. Then pull through our tabletop back to all fours. And reaching the toes back, we come back to our plank. And then shift onto the side of the left foot. We'll come into our side plank, lifting up through the right arm and reaching up to the right. Maybe putting a knee down. And then coming back to plank, rotating the toes back to center. And then we'll roll onto the right side, the right foot. And then reach up through the left hand, maybe putting that right knee down. Coming into our side plank on this side. Lifting up through the left ribs. And then exhale, rolling back. We come back to our plank pose. And then shift the hips up high and back. And sink into our down dog. And let the shoulders melt. The chest melt, the heart melt towards the knees. And shake out the head. Well, then come back down to the knees. We'll swing the feet around to the side to come to seated. Reaching the feet out in front of you really long. And then we'll bend the knees and we'll slowly begin to lower all the way down onto the back. Letting the head come back down comfortably. And taking a breath to settle in. Maybe shimmying the shoulders a little. Sliding the hips around a little. Settling in to how it feels to be on the back. And then we'll hug the knees into the chest and give them a nice squeeze. Maybe a little side to side. And then send the heels up towards the sky. We'll bring the hands back down comfortably alongside either side. And pressing the low back down firmly into the mat. And we'll begin to lower through the right foot. We'll keep the left foot reaching up and we'll just lower the right foot down and hover it above the ground. I'm keeping the low back pressed down firmly. We'll lower it to that place where we can still keep the back flat and then lift it back up. And then lower the left foot down, keeping the abs really engaged, low back flat to the mat. Lowering the left foot down as far as you can go while keeping that back pressed down flat so that there's no air between your low back and the mat. And then lift it back up. One more time on the right. We'll lower the right foot down, remembering to breathe as we keep those abs engaged, pressing energy out of both heels. Take another breath here. And then inhale, sweep the right leg back up. And then send that left foot out. And keeping the abs engaged, both heels pressing away. Keeping our breath full and steady. And inhale, sweep that left leg back up. And tuck the knees into the chest and give them a little squeeze and a little side to side. We'll massage into the back, giving it a little love. Letting the head roll along with it. And then press the heels up again. And this time we'll lift the hips, lift the seat, bring the hands to the low back like you're putting them in your pocket. We'll lift up into a shoulder stand. Reaching up through the toes, we'll reach the toes up and really lift up through the abs, lift up through the kneecaps. And we'll take a breath in our shoulder stand, pulling the shoulder blades towards each other. Nestling the shoulders up under the heart. And then we'll send the feet back really gently. We'll send the feet back into kind of a plow pose. So send the feet back behind the head. And then begin to roll from the shoulders to slowly lower yourself all the way down. Very slowly rolling the low back down. All the way down. And then bring the feet down as well. And we'll tick-tock through the knees, side to side. Rotate the head, roll the head side to side. And then we'll pull the heels up towards the glutes. We'll come into a little bridge pose flow. As we inhale, lift the hips up into our bridge. And then exhale, lower the hips. And then we'll bring the knees really together, very together. Pull the feet together. And inhale and press up into our bridge pose. And we'll hold here. So really holding the abs in, up and in. Lengthening through the low back. Snuggling the shoulders here slightly. And then exhale, lower. And we'll take the feet out really wide to either side of the mat. Take a breath. And then inhale, lift the hips up into our bridge. And we'll pause here for a moment and breathe. Hugging in the abs slightly, lengthening through that low back. And then slowly lower the hips all the way down. And bring the feet back in line with the hips. We'll take one more bridge pose with the knees in line with the hips. So inhale, lift up. And then we'll pause here for a moment, just a breath or two. And then just observe how this bridge feels compared to your first bridge. And then exhale, lower. We'll take a breath. And then hug the knees into the chest. And rotate a little, rolling onto the side, massaging into the whole back. And then making little circles with the knees one way and then the other. Then bring the feet back down and cross the right knee over the left. We'll take the arms out to cactus arms. And then drop the knees over towards the left. And sliding the hips a little bit towards the right. We'll begin to breathe here. Tuning back into the breath. And letting the body melt a little bit here. Finding places it can soften and relax. Places that can let go. Noticing where you're holding or gripping and seeing if you can bring breath to that area. Using the gift of your presence and awareness to help soften. A few more breaths on this side. And gently guide the knees back to center. Shift the hips and unwind, unravel. And tick-tock through the knees a few times. As you're ready, we'll cross the left knee over the right. And then shift the hips towards the left as we drop the knees over towards the right. Letting the left shoulder melt down towards the mat. And observing any differences on this side, any changes that you notice. How it feels to stretch and open through this side. Any contrasts you notice from the other side, along through the shoulders or through the hips, down into the knees and the ankles. And breathing into the belly. And scanning through the body, finding any sticky, grippy parts and try to allow them to soften and unstick. Release their grip. Sending the breath throughout your body. And gently walk your feet back, your knees back to center. Shift the hips, unravel the knees. And give them a little rocking side to side, bringing the hands back along side your body. And then take any last movements here that you might need or want. Massaging into the back, rotating through the knees, ankles, wrists. As you're ready, once you're satisfied here, we'll start to lengthen through the legs, bring them all the way out long. Setting up for our resting pose for Savasana today. Any last little shimmies through the knees, through the hips and the feet, and the arms, the shoulders, the hands, and the neck. Eventually coming to a place of stillness. Find that comfortable place for your neck where you can feel a little lengthening, a little air beneath your neck. And allow the body to sink down into the ground. Allowing gravity to take over. Feeling a sense of release and surrender. Feeling the earth rise up to meet you and feeling held in that presence. Every exhale, you feel a little bit wider, a little bit more relaxed. On the inhale, you hear let. On the exhale, you hear go. Let go. And imagine your diaphragm in the center between your ribs and your navel. Picture the diaphragm in the middle of your body, like a jellyfish, gently moving with your breath. With every inhale, the diaphragm presses down. With every inhale, it lifts back up. And follow that motion of the jellyfish in your center, moving down and up. Following the breath for a few moments. Gently begin to deepen the breath, bringing movement back to the fingers and the toes. Slowly making a little bit larger movements. Till eventually bring your knees up and roll onto your side. Make a pillow with your arm and pause for a moment here. In gratitude for your body, your breath, your engagement with these practices, and the experience born of that engagement. The gift of your presence. When you're ready, press yourself up to seated. And take a couple of breaths here and notice how you feel.